All right. So first question to Mon Général. So can you tell us a bit about the trigger in French, l'élément déclencheur that motivated you to become a champion for design in Canadian Armed Forces? And I have a memory. We were in Ottawa together in 2018. Yes. And we were in your car and we were on the way to a conference at Tesla School of Management. And I remember that you told me, Philip, we really need a champion in the Canadian Armed Forces. And I remember I looked at you, and he was just recently promoted general, like with the star. And I was like, well, what do you think? I mean, you look at your shoulder. Like,
that wasn't the plan, by the way.
So I never dared to ask the question, but I want to ask it tonight. So what is the key trigger? What is the motivation that told yourself, yes, I can be this champion?
Yeah, so it was based on my professional experience in operations. So, and during training, because training for Afghanistan just created that whole, just understanding the environment in Afghanistan, like from a tribal point of view, from a governance point of view, from a cultural point of view, very complex environment. And having gone through the process of trying to use a very linear operational planning process, which is what we teach at Canadian Forces College here in Toronto, but having experienced systemic operational design, I knew there was other methods out there where I could actually tackle this very complex problem. And so having gone through that experience of having a cultural advisor and actually a Pashto on the planning team, like an actual individual from southern Afghanistan, that created an opportunity for me to grow into design on operations. So when I came back, I always thought that there was something missing. The toolbox was there, but there was something missing in order to tackle complexity and chaos. So this is where you get the Kinefin framework. But we're really good at combat estimates. Like you can ask any young major if he does a combat team attack, he'll go through the combat estimate and he'll deliver those effects. But those are simple things, right? Right flanking, left flanking, attack in depth or whatever. So that's good for simple and complicated. But when you reach a level of complexity, then those tools don't necessarily apply. So I really wanted to make sure that we were teaching everybody to think differently and basically allowing them to think and plan using other means that were out there. So I thought it was a great opportunity, maybe not as a brigadier general, or that's not necessarily a recently promoted brigadier general that was actually at Canadian Joint Operations Command, but that's how I was able to launch on it. So we've launched an initiative with Lieutenant Colonel Jean-François Lamarche, who was my executive assistant. So guess what? I had the ideas, he had to execute. That's hierarchical we are in the forces. But he created a great package. We launched it online, and at the beginning, he came back to see me one day and he said, "Well, what if we don't get anybody?" Because this was on a volunteer basis, right? So he says, "What if we don't get anybody?" Well, I'm pretty sure people will join. So we were aiming for about 40 individuals, all ranks of the Canadian Forces, ended up with 250. So just show you how people were interested in design thinking and developing their skills. So that was just a proven concept. And of course, then the pandemic hit. So we got to the online sessions. We got to the remote distributed learning version. We got to the webinars with the help of the Archipelago of Design, but never got to the actual hands-on, let's do it. Let's try red teaming. Let's try foresight. Let's try all of these other methods and tools. So I think the primer will just launch us on another opportunity to move the yardstick again.
Now back on the primer, I remember when you were Director General for Plans at the Canadian Joint Operation Command. So for those who do not know, Canadian Joint Operation Command is the headquarters that is planning all of the operations that are led by Canadian Armed Forces. So either abroad or domestic, and the general was responsible for all of those plans. So I was just wondering. So I remember it was very important for you that we developed this primer. So can you tell us a bit why this primer is so important?
Yeah. So it's the complexity that we're facing when you're trying to develop a plan for the Indo-Pacific. And I know we're about to release a strategy for the Indo-Pacific. I can't wait to read it because we at CJOC had already developed a regional operations plan without that overarching strategy, right? Because we don't do national strategy in Canada, or we do revolving strategies in Canada. So, by looking at everything we were doing in the region, by looking at, for example, what our colleagues were thinking of the Indo-Pacific, because of course China geography has a vote when you're looking at China and Russia. And if you look at Russia from a circumpolar view, you have a different perspective than if you want to focus on Europe, right? So, but again, not just looking at it from a military angle, but wanting to look at it from a diplomatic, information, military, and economic view.
It's more why the primer in itself, you find it important for us to develop it.
So there was nowhere for people to go. So people were interested. We were teaching design at the Canadian Forces College. You could do an elective on design thinking at the college. But when a lot of the students were saying, this is all great, I love doing this, because this is just, we're innovating, we're looking at framing a problem before going with the solution. But when I go back to the headquarters, like, our bosses aren't necessarily receptive to that way of thinking and doing, because they want option 1, option 2, option 3, and they'll take 1 and a bit of 2 and a little bit of 3. That was going to be your COA that you're going to execute. Well, the world is way too complex, right? So spending time in understanding the environment and the problem before actually going with the options was paramount.
Merci, Général Bernard. And just to follow up, because you refer a lot to Afghanistan as your, let's say your main sort of experience justifying why we should do design, which is mainly counterinsurgency. So what do you reply to those who say, well, design was just a product of this moment, and now it's passé, right? It's old-fashioned, right? And then those who say, well, look at Ukraine in symmetric warfare. I'm not sure that design is that useful in comparison to our more conventional way of looking at things.
I would disagree, but like we're facing, even domestically, we're facing challenges, right? Polarization, we'd like to think that it's only a problem south of the border. No, look around, right? Freedom Convoy, you all have your own ideas, but misinformation, disinformation, climate security, pandemics. I always had problems explaining to people, simple, complicated, no problem. Complex, I could use counterinsurgency as an example. Pandemic is what I define as chaos. You're making decisions basing on, yes, evidence-based, science-based decisions sometimes, and the politics get into play and it changes the calculus. But anyway, you're making decisions with the best information you have, and you're just seeing if it's working, and then you readjust over time and you keep changing, policies.